University of Florida basketball. They played Alabama in the semifinals yesterday, and they played Alabama about a week and a half ago, and it was 99, 96, 98, 95, whatever it was, and it was back and forth the whole way. And they played yesterday again in Nashville in the SEC semifinal, and back and forth the whole way to in that first half. 42, 40. It was like 16-16, 5 minutes into the game. It was incredible. It's just an ultimate display of offense. Florida ended up never taking off their foot off the gas, and Alabama sort of wavered a little bit in that second half. Florida ended up killing them by 20-something points, so 20-some-odd points. Now they play Tennessee today in the SEC championship, and here's why that game's interesting. There's one seed still sort of up for grabs. Duke has one, Houston has one, Auburn has one. Nobody really knows who that fourth one is going to. St. John's is making a bid for it, but I think the winner of Tennessee, who beat Auburn yesterday, and Florida today at 1 p.m., I think that will be for the last one seed. For me, Cade, it's hard for me to get into some of these games because they're not necessarily playing for anything, right? You're not playing to get into the tournament. You're in. You could lose and you'll be all right. But I think that makes it interesting because you're playing for the coveted one seed. And that adds a little bit of intrigue to each side. But my takeaway from Florida is I think they'll beat Tennessee today, number one. Number two, I wasn't sold on them all year. Starting to get last couple weeks I have been. That team can win it all.
So fill me in, Colin, and I am a casual college basketball watcher, right? I'll keep up with the standings. I'll keep up with the rankings, but I'm not that guy who's watching it on Thursday, Wednesday night, every single night. But I'm also looking at schedules here, and Auburn's lost 3 of their last 4 to pretty good teams.
Yep.
So why do you think they're just like an automatic one seed right now? Because
they had the hardest strength of schedule by a margin.
Okay.
And they killed everybody. They beat Houston before the year started. Beat Iowa State before the year started. Beat Purdue before the year started. They beat Alabama on their home court. They lost in a game winner to Alabama last Saturday. And it was a great game, back and forth the whole way. Rivalry game.
Okay.
But they lost in a game winner. Then they had a sort of a drop game against Texas A&M last Tuesday in Texas A&M's building, who's good, who's a top 15 team.
Yep.
And then all of a sudden they had a win against Ole Miss, which was a good game back and forth in the first round of the SEC tournament, or the quarterfinal, I should say. And then that Tennessee-Auburn game was back and forth the whole way.
Okay.
Tennessee was up in that game, 62-49, with about 6 minutes to go. Auburn goes on a 10-0 run by themselves in about a minute and a half. But to Tennessee's credit, they sort of responded and kept them at bay. It's a very close game either side. Now, you mentioned the 3 of the last 4. No champion in the history of college basketball has ever lost 3 of their last 4 games going into the tournament and went on to win it all. Auburn has. They've lost 3 of their last 4. If you asked me a week and a half ago, I would have told you that Auburn would have killed the field. That would have been my UConn of last year.
Yeah.
That would have been not going to be challenged until you get to the third weekend. That was my Auburn. I'm not there anymore. So I'm down on Auburn. But when you put together the resume that they have, they beat that SEC is going to get 14, 13 bids, which is going to be the most all time. The most ever is 11. Most all time, they're going to get 13 or 14. It's one of the best conferences in the history of college basketball. They went 15-3 in conference. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
And that's winning road games, it's winning home games. They beat everybody. They lost to Florida, who's a top 5 team.
Yeah.
They lost to Alabama, who's going to be who's a top 8 team. Lost to Texas A&M too. But I'm down on Auburn. I'm in on Florida. Florida is a scoring machine. You think Alabama can score? That's been their namesake for the last couple of years. They could score, they can't defend. Florida can score, but they can defend too. Very good team. And they're playing for a 1 seed today against Tennessee. Tennessee got that win over Auburn. They could leapfrog, because how is Tennessee going to beat Florida in the SEC championship game and you're going to give Florida that 4th 1 seed? How are you going to do that?
You would maybe give it to St. John's?
Maybe. The one thing about St. John's, we'll get to them in a second, is the conference isn't as good.
Yeah.
They're going to want to throw a bone to the SEC because it's a gauntlet. If you look at Auburn played Tennessee, Alabama, Texas A&M, and Ole Miss. A&M is a top 15 team. Alabama's a top 10 team. And Tennessee's a top 10, top 5, 6 team. That's a lot of competition in a short amount of time. Same with Alabama. Alabama played Florida, Tennessee, and Auburn to finish off their regular season in a row. That's brutal. That's brutal. So on the college basketball front of things, for those of you who are tuning in today, trying to get a sense of what to watch, what to look for today, that Tennessee-Auburn game is probably, in my opinion, for a 1 seed.